artists or essential workers. And I say that mainly because in the spirit of Sankofa, reaching back and fetching understanding of the wisdom that our ancestors have left to us, the foundation of that wisdom was called MAAT, M-A-A-T, or M-A-A-T. And MAAT consists of 7 universal principles: truth, justice, righteousness, order, balance, harmony, and reciprocity. And those 7 universal principles that our ancestors created and left to us and the world presently serve as a foundation for all world religions. So with that said, I would like to share with you a poem by Langston Hughes. And this is one of the final poems in the presentation, Redemption Ritual, inviting the ancestors to be present. Langston Hughes' poem is called, that I will do, is called Final Call. Send for the Pied Piper, and let him pipe our rats away. Send for Robin Hood to clinch the anti-poverty campaign. Send for the fairy queen with a wave of the wand to make us all into princesses and princesses. Send for King Arthur to bring the Holy Grail. Send for old man Moses to lay down the law. Send for Jesus to preach the Sermon on the Mount. Send for Jeffis to cry, J'accuse. Send for Dead Blind Lemon to sing the B-flat blues. Send for Robespierre to cry, J'accuse. Send for Dead Blind Lemon to sing the B-flat blues. Send, God forbid, he's not dead long enough, for Lumumba to cry, freedom now. Send for Lafayette and tell him, help, help me. Send for Denmark Vesey crying, free. For Sank saying, run a new flag up the mask. For old John Brown who knew slavery couldn't last. Send for Lenin, don't you dare, he can't come here. Send for Trotsky, what? Don't confuse the issue, please. Send for Uncle Tom on his mighty knees. Send for Lincoln, send for Grant. Send for Frederick Douglass, Garrison, Beecher Lowell. Send for Harriet Tubman, oh, Sojourner Truth. Send for Marcus Garvey, what? Sophie, who? Father Divine, where? Dubois, when? Malcolm, oh. Stokely, no. Then send for Adam Powell on a non-subpoena day.
On a non-subpoena day?
Send for the Pied Piper to pipe our rats away. And if nobody comes, send for me. Hello, my name is Rufus Chafing Stevenson. They call me Baba Rufus Chafing Stevenson. I am the founder and the vice chairperson of Jock Kinty International. And I'm also the curator of the Chafing Collection of African and South Pacific arts and crafts. The mission of Jock Kinty is to nurture and promote, in essence, to nurture and promote the cultural spirit of Africa in the diaspora. In addition, I am, I guess I would say, the founder and elder of the Teaching Artists Institute. And this institution was founded in order to bring artists into realizing how they should use their artistic creativity to transform society. One thing that I do as a curator of the Shaping Collection is that I take colorful hand-woven African textiles from different countries in Africa, and I dress church sanctuaries, theater backdrops, such as the Kennedy Center, and I exhibit. In essence, I take these colorful African textiles and sculptures, and I bring the African spirit into the venue. This is one of my major endeavors. Presently, Kent International serve as one of the hosts for the 2020 Mayor Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, and we have 140 students that we Zoom every morning for the past 6 weeks. This is our 7th week. I thought that it was a 6-week program, but it's been extended for 2 more weeks, so it will end on August the 14th. It is my great pleasure to sit at this moment and share with you some of my experiences and exposure in living this life as an African American. I was born the 7th son, the 9th child of 13 siblings. I recall very well when my mother's relatives would come from Massachusetts and home, the first thing they would ask for when they came to my house was, where was that 7th boy? According to Southern folklore, the 7th son is supposed to be somebody, supposed to travel and get exposure and see the world, and supposed to have a message. So I was not able to forget that. Year after year they would come home and they would say, where's that 7th boy? So I grew up thinking that I had to do something, that I had to see the world. So when I finished high school, knowing I had no one to help me go to college, I had worked for 3 years to save enough money to pay for 3 years of college at Morehouse, where I majored in mathematics and minored in philosophy and education. When I finished Morehouse, I was the first Morehouse graduate to join and serve in the Peace Corps in West Africa. And that was my first exposure to the international community. And since that time, I have been living in that international exposure. Major things have happened to me in my life. And I think the very first thing was my joining the Peace Corps and going to Africa back in the 60s. I think I went to Sierra Leone when the first Prime Minister was appointed to Sierra Leone's independence. And from that time on, I make a long story short, after finishing the Peace Corps, I studied in Germany for a year, the German language, and then I was drafted into the U.S. Army, where I served in Vietnam as a military policeman. After Vietnam, I came back and got a Rockefeller grant, and I did my graduate work at the Paul H. Nitz School of Advanced International Studies at the Johns Hopkins University, SAIS. After getting my master's in international diplomacy, I joined the State Department, and I served in Madagascar, Mali, and throughout and many countries in Africa. But my final post was in London, where I started dressing stages in London with my African textiles. And I acquired these African textiles while in Mali, I met the spirit of the ancestors and decided that I would spend the rest of my life nurturing that spirit. I would spend the rest of my life nurturing that rich African cultural spirit home in the United States. So when I was in Mali, I harnessed the moment and collected African art after I realized the rich African heritage that our ancestors had left us. I harnessed the moment and I collected African art and textiles and sculpture art to bring back to America. Several things have happened, major things that have happened in my life that I would like to mention to you, is that in 2001, I would say, I was asked, the spirit of Kwanzaa became official, and I was asked to dress the Kennedy Center, the Millennium Stage, for the first Kwanzaa presentation. And the Dance Institute of Washington, Fabian Barnes at the time, had seen my dress at the Lincoln Theater and asked me to dress the Millennium Stage for that first presentation. And it was so well received until the Kennedy Center gave us the Grand Concert Hall stage for the next 10 consecutive years. And that was my pleasure to dress that stage. Since that time, I have been dressed in church sanctuaries like Metropolitan AME Church, Greater New Hope Baptist, 19th Street Baptist, and 2nd Street Baptist, dressed in their sanctuaries, mainly for Black History Month. And then, for the 40th anniversary March on Washington, Mrs. Coretta Scott King gave me permission to dress the podium on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial for that 40th anniversary celebration, and that was an honor. The New York Times wrote, in essence, that Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther King's son, stood behind a podium on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, dripping in kente cloth that I had dressed. And then for the 10th anniversary march, the Million Man March, Minister Farrakhan gave me permission to dress the stage on the steps of the U.S. Capitol, and that was an honor there. I have been blessed health-wise and I guess exposure-wise as a result of my consciously dedicating my life to Mother Africa. And at this stage of my life, I take pride in a presentation that I have been nurturing. The presentation is called Redemption Ritual, Inviting the Ancestors to be Present. This presentation was compiled by a very good friend of mine called Douglas MacArthur Johnson, whom I met when I came back from England. And his theatrical name, AKA, was called Sincere Thunder Name Free. And this poetic presentation consists of the 11 classic African-American poems by 7 Harlem Renaissance poets, including Langston Hughes, County Collins, Margaret Walker, Robert Hayton, James Weller Johnson, and Richard Wright. These 11 classic poems have been compiled as an anthology tracing African-American history from pre-captivity to the present. And even this year's 2020 Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, the focus is on the Harlem Renaissance. And in 2000, when Douglas MacArthur Johnson passed, I took this poetic presentation and I contacted friends who had worked with him in the theater, and for the first time we formed an adult cast. And this adult cast functioned, not only gave presentations not only at the Cochran Gallery in Washington and different churches and whatnot, but we traveled to New York and Massachusetts and Indiana. And then in 2006, I thought it was time for the young people to get involved with this classic presentation, poetic presentation. So I was able to get $20,000 in grants from the DC government and from the Washington Post to create a youth cast, a showcase presentation. And it realized itself at Dunbar High School for the showcase presentation. And this presentation is part of the Sankofa. It's called, the presentation is called, the youth presentation is called the Sankofa Project. And the objective of this Sankofa Project is to take this youth cast and present it in Washington, having it to travel through all the underserved high schools in Washington. Remember, we had the showcase presentation, the youth presentation in 2006. And up until now, we have been unable to fulfill the objective of the Sankofa Project. And now we are working now in order to come forth with a youth cast that will tour this presentation, this classic presentation from the Harlem Renaissance through all the underserved high schools of Washington, and then the DMV, which is the district, Maryland and Virginia, and the nation. And now, since Jacques Kent International now is working very closely with the African Union, and we are very thankful for help coming to us to assist us from an African who is the emeritus of a special, I guess you would say, advisory position that was nominated in 2016, and her name is Evelyn Joe.
I don't want my name there.
All right. Well, we are very thankful that Jacques Kent Mother Africa has sent this help to help Jacques Kent, and as a result, now we are working now with the summer youth program, focus on the Harlem Renaissance and these poems. And I will invite everyone for the next 2 weeks who's listening, who sees this presentation that I'm doing now, tune into Jacques Kent International and be aware that we are in the last 2 weeks of the 2020 Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, and see what we are doing with these young people. And I give all the credit to Mother Africa and Evelyn Joe, who has come to assist Jacques Kent to make this historic transition with our young people. So we are very thankful for that indeed. So I can continue talking, but I give thanks and praise for the spirit of Mother Africa, and knowing that Mother Africa is, and through this cultural renaissance that we are nurturing. And I want everyone listening to this presentation to keep in mind that in the spirit of Sankofa, we as an African people, we as an African spirit, in order to revitalize that spirit, we must bring forth a cultural revolution. It's time for a cultural revolution. And in order to bring forth a cultural revolution, we must, in the spirit of Sankofa, reach back and fetch it. We must reach back and fetch an understanding of the Nile civilization that the Greeks and all ancient history has written and demonstrated to the world, that all wisdom came out of this Nile Valley civilization that was the apex of it was Ethiopia. Now before Ethiopia, it was the Kushite Empire. So I will tell everyone, I recommend a very famous book that I would like for everyone to be familiar with. It's called The Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire. And it's written by a sister way back in 1926 out in the Middle West. Her name was Drusilla Donji Houston. And read about the wonderful Ethiopians of the ancient Kushite Empire. And I must tell you that so far when I dress venues, I've come forth with 7 voices. Every time I dress a venue, these 7 voices represented in hand-woven colorful strips represents the 7 voices of Africa from pre-biblical times to the present. The first 5 voices were revealed to me in 2011 when I met Kim Poole. We both joined the excavation of Tony Browder's excavation of the tomb of Karakomun in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. We were part of this international team, and in essence, it was 3 months after the Egyptian Revolution, and we were the only international excavation team in Egypt, in the Valley of the Kings. And Kim Poole, who is the founder of the Teaching Artists Institute, she and I, we worked with Tony Browder and his daughter and a few others during that period of time, for about 2 weeks. But while I was there in Egypt doing that excavation, 5 voices were revealed to me. And these 5 voices, if you follow the presentation, my presentation, I'll put it up on the screen for you guys to see the 7 voices of Africa. The first 5 voices were revealed to me in Egypt, and the last 2 voices were revealed to me in 2015. I was invited to give my first international talk as a cultural evangelist at the 3rd International Conference on Ethiopia, its biblical, historical, and cultural roots. And while I was there traveling with this conference from Addis Ababa, the capital, all the way to Lalibela and then to Aksum, 2 voices were added to the 5, and now there are 7 voices of Africa from pre-biblical times to the present. And I will not tell you that. I will have you to follow this presentation today and look at the 7 voices, it's already been on my Facebook page, but I put it on again. I'm saying all this to remind you that we have to reach back and understand our past. We must harness the moment now with this the virus spreading throughout the world, which we don't know whether it's biological or whether it's a natural thing, but we do know that it's there. And tomorrow is not promised. So we as an African people, we must harness the moment and revitalize, bring back to the world the truth of our ancestral wisdom. We were the ones that gave light. We were the ones that gave all the wisdom from mathematics, astronomy, physics, everything we gave to humankind. And we want our inheritance back. And we will take it back by harnessing and bringing forth a new cultural revolution for Mother Africa. And I think that that said, I think I will end this presentation.